Gutenberg is a Eurogame set in the European Renaissance, and we are making books at the time where that was the last and coolest innovation around. Printing books. How amazing is that? The production values are very good. The game looks impressive and feels impressive. No plastic. Everything is cardboard, paper, and wood. Very nice. We have a ginormous board. Not just ginormous, but we have a large board that we will use to organize various components that become available each turn. A lot of the game is collecting components from the board from top to bottom in order to fulfill orders, and each order represents a book that we're printing. Each player has a personal board, such as this one, that is used to keep track of various things. And this is also where we place our orders. Each order that we're trying to fulfill is made of two cards, a print and a refinement. In order to complete an order, the print part is mandatory, the refinement is optional. And each refinement card has two possible refinements. And again, you can fulfill 0, only 1, both of them. And what you see here at the bottom is the reward. So 2 victory points for adding that refinement to that order, 1 victory point for that one, and extra points if you complete both. Fulfilling the order gives you money, and that, of course, is also very, very important. To fulfill an order, usually you need to show that you have the correct letters during the game. You will start with some letters, and you will acquire more during the game, and the more you acquire, the more expensive it becomes to acquire even more. When you're fulfilling an order, you simply need to show that you have those letters. They're not spent. But still, each letter can be used to fulfill only one order. In case you have multiple ones, well, each can be used only for one. Here you have levels of skill that are kept track of on this board. So for example, to complete that refinement, I need to have at least a level 1 binding, which means I need to have spent actions and resources to increase that. And during the game, again, there will be game effects that will increase those skills. And also, when we reach a certain threshold for the first time, we get an advantage, and we keep track of those here by moving this marker that way. So that's for that kind of requirement to fulfill refinements based on the level of skill. And then also ink. Again, skill and letters, you just need to show that you have them, as opposed to ink. Ink is represented by tokens, and those you will again collect using game effects, and these are actually discarded. The ink is the only requirement that is a one-time use only. You see the space here, I'm sure you're curious about that. That is where we're gonna place the gears each round of the game, and we have 6 of those. You will, for the first 3 rounds, you will acquire a new gear that will go there. That will go in your, that should be that way. That will go here in your shop. And each gear will give you a benefit, indicated by which section of the gear is currently in that lighter background area of your display. So this round, that benefit is available, that benefit is available, and that benefit is available. Each benefit can be used once per round, and so once you use it, you place a token there as a reminder that this way you don't inadvertently cheat using the same thing twice. Also, each round the gears will turn, so making new skills, so new benefits available, or sometimes turning into unavailable. So that's for that. Now, we have also, each player also has a personal screen and a personal display in which you will reserve actions. So I just say, basically you're bidding for priority. At its core, this is a bidding game in which you will be using cubes to commit to how much you want to do certain actions before the players do. The number of cubes that you have is variable, changes depending on player order. So players that will go first will have fewer cubes. And you don't have actually to place cubes for each action. You could choose to really commit a lot to only some of the actions, but then if you don't have at least a cube, you're not going to do that action at all. So at the beginning of each round, the players will have a phase in which behind their screen, they're committing by placing those cubes. And again, the more cubes you have in next to an action, it means that the earlier you will take it when we reveal our action. Say, okay, I only have 1 cube here, Liz has 3, and Sam has 4, so Sam goes first in that action, then Liz, then me. And then we go to the next action, 2 inks, okay, everybody has 1, but I have 2, so I'm gonna go first. So first we commit to these actions that will be then resolved from top to bottom, and that is when we move to the board in order to resolve those actions. And again, going from top to bottom, the first action that we will resolve, again in the order determined by the cubes we place, will be to acquire new contracts. Remember the contracts, or the orders I should say, each is made of a printing card and a refinement. And again, going first means that I get more options. I want to take this one and this one. Again, I can take any one and any one, but once I put them together, they are locked. Remember, I placed them next to my player board, but again, from that moment on, I cannot change the combination of the order. And then the next player goes and they take these two and they make that order, which they play in their place in their personal area. So again, as you can see, that changes things and the opportunity is reduced. After that, after we resolve that action, the next action is to collect ink. Ink is in sets of 3 ink drops, and those are randomly determined because we draw the ink for those sets randomly from the bag. When I select a set, the first ink is for free, the second costs me 1 coin, and the third one 3 coins, and I have to take them from left to right if I decide to take them all, or even if I decide to take only some, it still is from left to right. And then that's how I acquire some inks. Now, if the player before me has taken part of a set, so that's what the player before me did, and I want to take that set, I still have to pay the coins. I still have to take the set from left to right. So you're allowed to take an incomplete set if somebody left one before you went. So again, you can see how important the order is, and that's why that initial auction is really essential. It is the heart of the game, basically. Now we get to this other action here in which we're gonna improve our skills. Remember those cubes on your personal board that go up and they meet certain thresholds, therefore then becoming available to fulfill requirements and giving you bonuses. Those cubes go up in those skills using those cards. So when we get to resolve this action, each player, again in the order determined by the initial auction, will take a card, and then they can improve 1 level in the skills indicated here. So I could go up in binding by twice here, or if I take this card, I could go up 1 level in binding and 1 level in ink. Or you can take one, and instead of going up into categories, I simply use it as a single wild. So I just ignore the symbols here and I go up in any one skill by one level. Then we go to the next action, which again, in player order, we're gonna start grabbing gears and add them to our shop. As I showed you earlier, they add them from top to bottom so that they're facing specific slots. You can also choose, instead of acquiring a gear, to basically pull a gear out of your shop, just yank it out and change your orientation and then put it back in there. So that would be another option that you can do benefit from during this phase. And then we get to the patronage phase, in which again, in turn order, players will acquire benefits. The patronage area is also next to the round track. The first 2 rounds The first 2 rounds, the benefits that are available are these only. So, for example, collect 3 coins or collect 2 inks. You're still going to place your cube there, so that still makes that benefit unavailable to players that select their benefit after you. Starting from round 3, these are still available, but also you have the patronage cards available to you, and you have the ones that are available in the area corresponding to the current round and any previous one that was left behind. In order for you to collect a patronage card, you need to fulfill the requirements. For example, if I want to take this one, I need to have binding at least a level 4, and I need to have these 2 letters in my shop. Again, I'm showing that I have them. I don't have to spend them. And collecting those cards is very valuable because they will give us victory points at the end of the game. So again, the idea is very simple. Once you bid for priority behind your screen, as I showed you earlier, you just go from top to bottom and you resolve these actions, which usually give you stuff, give you improvements, give you cards that will be worth the victory points. After we do all that, that is when we fulfill our orders. Remember, again, that's how we fulfill our orders, by using letters, by allocating letters, but they're not spent, by demonstrating we have the right level of skills, by spending ink, we collect coins, and that's the general idea, really. We collect coins and we collect victory points also. We continue for 6 rounds. By then, players should have some good score there based on the orders that they fulfilled, and then you add extra points based on the thresholds that you reach. See, after a certain level, some thresholds will give you victory points there. You also collect victory points for the patronage cards that you collected, and these are worth 8 victory points each. It's pretty sweet. Then also each 3 coins that you still have at the end of the game is worth a victory point. Player with the highest score wins the game. I like this game. It's a fun game. It has an incredible production. It boasts being a game without plastic, which is true, of course. The components come with little cardboard bags or boxes, almost like origami, in which you can store different things. The downside maybe is that with the dials that regulate the movement of the gears, you have to push in the wooden cylinders every time, as opposed to those plastic dials. You snap them in once and done. But that's such a small price to pay for a game that just looks so good and has such a strong tactile feel. Those wooden letters that are also carved so that they look backwards, because that's how they would need to be, so that then when you use them to print, they come out right. That they're just really impressive components here that is a pleasure to play with. From the point of view of gameplay, the game is a bidding game and it's extremely simple. Although, again, you go through all those steps that may seem daunting, but I think this could almost be like an intro game. Sure, it's not as like immediately intuitive like Ticket to Ride, but just a couple of steps above, really, because it's a couple of steps above Splendor, with the idea that you're gonna collect stuff in order to purchase other stuff. You're gonna do that, but the bidding order adds a whole other layer, which also is why this game has a solitaire option, but I haven't explored that. I'll leave it to you to do so if you so desire, because I love bidding games, and what I love there is precisely the human element, the uncertainty. I'm trying to read my opponents, figure out how much they really want a certain component. And if I think that's a lot, then I'm probably going to overbid and regret it. But then I don't bid enough, and then I regret that also. The fact that you're trying to read the opponents, to me, is a unique element that just doesn't translate well when you have an automa that regulates what the opponents do. And so that's why I'm not super interested in that. Again, I love playing games two-handed or even against automas from time to time. But if it's a bidding game, I want to play it against humans. Again, you can definitely exploited option, and maybe then the game becomes a nice management game there. But to me, the fact that you have this economy which is not super tight, so there is a certain forgiving element there, which I think is important in a bidding game. So it's still good to be able to read the opponents, and very satisfying when you get to go before the person that you feared, but not by spending too many cubes. That's really nice. It's a nice challenge. But again, the economy is tight enough that it's rewarding to try to bid correctly, but not unforgiving. And so, yes, I didn't get the ink that I wanted, so instead of printing that thing, maybe then I'll print something else. I'm going to use that letter in a certain way so that not exactly how I want it, but I can do something else. Usually when you have multiple orders available to you, bidding not ideally means that you don't get to do exactly what you wanted, but you get to do something else. You still get to score some points, to collect some rewards, to collect some money. Maybe you can buy a letter that way. So there are just a lot of things that you can do based on, again, this such simple idea. So I really like that the game, of course, rewards optimal play, but allows you to go in different ways if that is not truly optimal. And at the same time, again, the idea is so simple, but you're trying to still keep track of many different things. How can I optimize my letters? When can I use my ink? Okay, the ink I wanted to use to print it, you know what? That didn't work out. Then I'm going to save that ink and use it maybe to buy a patronage card later. And again, keeping track of those and being able to collect those on top of everything else is definitely very rewarding. And probably want to do that to score all those delicious, juicy points waiting for you there. So I really like the fact that you are building an engine in a state of like uncertainty and limited knowledge about what other players are trying to do. Paradoxically, the element that probably is the most eye-catching when you look at the back of the box, to me, is turned out to be the least revolutionary or not particularly central, which is why I haven't even mentioned it yet, which is the gears. I don't mind that they're there. It's not a problem that they're there. They don't bother me at all. They were just not as central to the design as I expected them to be. And maybe, again, that's just my preconception when I see a game with that, which is unusual. I think that's going to be really, really important. It turned out to be an interesting secondary mechanic, but definitely not as central as I thought it'd be. If nothing else, it takes you literally half of the game to build the engine, because it's 6 rounds. You get a new gear. You start with none. You get a new gear each round. So the first 3 rounds is you're building it. And yes, see if you can pull it off to place them in a way, then as you turn them, now you have the great other combo, and then you turn them again and you have a good combo. But again, it's going to take you half of the turn, and if you do create that perfect combo of rotating gears, you're going to do it 3 times, maybe, because that's the number of rounds in which, 4 times maybe, in which you have the whole thing. And of course, in most cases, well, it won't just work as great. So they give you interesting things that are still good to have. It's just not as central. It's a lot more of a supporting mechanic than I expected. Again, when you can pull it off, it's great, but to pull it off really, really well, maybe you'll do it once or twice in the entire game. And some of the times you just yank one out and then push it back in, and that's how you use your action for the gear phase of a round. Again, I'm not saying it's unnecessary. I'm saying it's nice to have, but I didn't think that it was so central. It felt an ancillary mechanic, again, more than a supportive one as I expected. And again, if I'm giving you a sense that it's a negative opinion, that's not it. I enjoyed doing it. I thought I was going to be doing a lot more playing with those gear than I was, as opposed to, I can trade that at a discount and I can do that and maybe next turn do that. It's fine. It's just more peripheral than I expected. Overall, Gutenberg is a really fun game. You have a Euro game here, which is full with interesting decisions, has a really simple, really core engine, bid to determine the order, take your actions. But then there are a lot of interesting elements to digest, a lot of interesting strategy that can emerge from it. It's a beautifully human interaction game, again, because of the bidding element, which to me is what makes this game very different from other Euro games, which are more like multiplayer solo. To me, the beauty of this game is trying to read the opponents while we're playing a Euro game and not just playing with abstract resources and optimizing the puzzle. This is my assessment of Gutenberg. It's fun.